Greetings, science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts. Do you read books? Do you watch films? Do you hate deodorant? Then welcome to our podcast. You're listening to No Deodorant in Outer Space with Ryan Sean O'Reilly. Now, let's get started.
Ancient folk saying, you can catch the devil, but you can't hold him long. Ask Brother Jerome. Ask David Ellington. They know, and they'll go on knowing to the end of their days and beyond in the Twilight Zone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of No Deodorant in Outer Space. My name is Ryan Sean O'Reilly, and I'll be guiding you along in this podcast adventure as we cover the second half of our subject matter, which the first half was about Charles Beaumont and his collection of short stories, Perchance to Dream and other selected stories. And then this episode, we're going to cover 6 corresponding episodes from the Twilight Zone, where those stories were turned into actual episodes. And we'll also be talking about Rod Serling himself. Joining us once again is my cousin, director, indie film director, Mike O'Reilly.
So pretentious.
So pretentious. Get on that mic.
Hi.
So welcome back, Mike.
Hello again.
All right. And also his sister and my cousin, Kaelin O'Reilly, the bookworm gal, sometimes just Kaelin O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm. Hello. Thanks for having me.
And Andres Sercovich.
No. Try again.
Not even close.
Go ahead.
Sercovich.
Nice. Very nice. Andrei Sercovich, yes.
Sercovich. Mm-hmm. Okay. Andres Sercovich. I'll forget.
Butchered.
It's all good.
Let me just butcher. And the
just
funny
my
thing
name.
is I said it correctly when you first introduced yourself.
Yeah.
And then I got it wrong the rest of the
Nah,
time.
you screwed it up that time, too.
So we already kind of introduced ourselves last episodes. We don't need to get into that. We're still here at the Wildwood Film Festival in Appleton, Wisconsin, which will be going pretty soon in a matter of a little couple hours. But we'll go see your film debut for your screening. This episode, we're going to be covering Rod Serling. So let's just get into a little background bio on Mr. Serling. I'll say some stuff, and then Mike, you can add in whatever you know or correct me if I'm wrong. Rod Edward Serling was born on December 25th, 1924. He died June 28th, 1975. He wrote much of his life from the beginning. He got 3 Emmys early on in his career, one for The Comedian, one for, were they like screenplays, Playhouse theaters?
Radio. He started
in
wrote
radio.
a radio program. I believe that was his first.
But then he started getting stuff on television eventually. Yeah, I think there was a couple quotes where he said he had like 40 rejections before he had his first sale with his agent.
Right.
But eventually he got stuff on TV and screenplays. And the first successful one, I think, was The Comedian. This next one was called Patterns. And that one was about like an old corporate boss who is being outwitted by a young corporate executive who's, fresh and full of ideas, the old kind of versus the young. The next one that came out that really got him known was Requiem for a Heavyweight, which is also about like an old heavyweight boxer who never became the champion, right? And then was forced to retire.
Yeah, he was kind of a journeyman fighter, and that was Anthony Quinn played him in the movie. With
it was on Playhouse 90, I think that was
right.
debut.
It was great. I'm a big fan of it. I love it.
It's really good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't sci-fi or fantasy or horror.
No,
even.
that was pure the boxing, just kind of a boxing drama,
and Serling,
melodrama.
he had experience in boxing. He was in the Paratroopers, actually, and he was a short guy, but he got into the Paratroopers and he did some boxing. I think he did try for Golden Gloves, but he wasn't very successful.
He had 12 fights. 12 actual bouts, but I think he got his bell rung pretty hard in his last fight, and he finally said, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
But interesting point about him is he was paid by the military to test parachutes.
I think after he got out of the military, right? He did it for extra cash.
Yeah, he was paid a lot of money, and he signed these contracts, these liability waivers that would say,
like liability waivers.
Okay, here's
you might die.
You may die if you don't
very
die.
Well die.
If you don't die, we'll give you $7,000, something like that.
I'd do it.
Yeah. He really liked to do material that was controversial or, that was socially relevant. He got frustrated when he was doing these scripts because of corporate interference and censorship from executives, but as well as actual sponsors. Like if they did a show and they were showing the Ford building and Chevrolet was a sponsor, then Chevrolet would come in and say, dictate what needed to be in the script. And he kind of felt like all their stuff was being ripped to hell. Also, the studios didn't like doing controversial or social issues. Like I think he wanted to do one about Emmett Till, and they ended up completely changing the story around, so it didn't even resemble the Emmett Till story. It was like they changed it to like a Hispanic person, and he got just fed up with all this interference, and that's what eventually led him to get into the Twilight Zone.
Right,
is that he felt like he could address some of these social issues in the context of science fiction and fantasy.
He just disguised it.
Yeah, and that in science fiction and fantasy and horror, this genre is known for that. I mean, I remember when earlier in the podcast we did Roadside Picnic was a Russian novel, and those brothers that wrote it, they got into more controversial things under that regime, and they were able to not be censored because they wrote in science fiction. And so that's kind of the same thing that happened here with Serling, as he was able to express himself in this new medium. He wrote 70% of the scripts, like 92 out of 156 total episodes.
Yeah. And that number is kind of debated. I don't think it's known exactly how many he wrote, which is kind of strange because there should be a record of it, but it's between 92 and 94. Okay, yeah. But he was a significant writer and wrote a lot. He did, of course, he recruited Charles Beaumont, who was an author in his own right, but also did write, the scripts and had them adapted, and Richard Matheson and George Clayton Johnson. Those were the primary guys. It ran for 5 years. It was canceled 3 times. By the time the third cancellation came around, he was just kind of done with it. I think he was burned out. You got the sense from him that, because he worked in radio and then in TV, is that he was a real workaholic. He put in long hours, and he felt like he was getting burned out just because the demands of these mediums of just cranking out scripts really wore on him. Yeah, the number of scripts that he wrote, that kind of speaks for that right there, because they had lots of different screenwriters that they tried to bring in, but none of the work really matched lived up to his expectations. That's why he had this small basket of writers that he used, and he used them kind of frequently, which is writers that we've already discussed. Mm-hmm. There was a quote that he said, if he dropped a pencil, he would be 2 weeks behind in his work. And he said you had to pay for success as well as achieve it if you wanted to be on top. But so he just felt drained out of his ideas, and he at one point he wished he could take 6 months off to replenish the well. So he was done by the end of it. He did like being a celebrity though, and he liked having his vacation home, which led him eventually, I think, to do a commercial. Even though he was this writer that wanted to do socially conscious things and stuff that was controversial, but eventually he did. After the Twilight Zone, he did a Western that failed. And the network gave him a hassle because they wanted more action in it. And he was like, I'm not writing, some just typical action Western. I want to do something more relevant. They canceled him. That depressed him or upset him. And then he eventually came around and did Night Gallery, which was like the Twilight Zone, except he didn't want to be in charge because he didn't want all that responsibility. However, so since he wasn't in charge, he had less creative control. And he felt ultimately, even though he contributed to the content, that it wasn't the material didn't live up to the standard that the Twilight Zone had. And he, I think, regretted being a part of the Night Gallery eventually. So it was like the Twilight Zone because he would start off the show and give an intro, just like the Twilight Zone. And it was more horror related stories, I think. It was a little different. But he just wasn't happy with it in the end, being a part of that. But he liked getting a paycheck. In the end of his life, he also liked to teach. He would give classes and seminars to other writers. He really liked to do that and share his knowledge and also learn from other writers. So he gave back to the writing community later in his life. As he got older, he wrote less. He felt like he'd kind of told all the stories that he wanted to tell. He ended up having a heart attack, I believe a minor heart attack, and then another one. And then the doctor said, we need to do surgery. This is serious enough that we needed to get you in and do surgery. And then he ended up having another heart attack on the table, and he died. I think was he only 50 years old? 50 years old. He was a chain smoker, though. He was a heavy smoker, yeah. Are we going to touch? I mean, this was all after he wrote Planet of the Apes, too. He wrote the original script. I think it might have got altered. Yeah. I'm not sure if he had the final version. But yeah, he was at least an early version, I think, of the Planet of the Apes. That was another thing he did. So the guy wrote a lot. And like Beaumont, he lived longer than Beaumont, but he wrote a lot in a short time period. Yeah, I saw a quote that he did 5 packs a day smoking habit. He was a heavy smoker. That was back when it was good for you.
It was cool.
When the doctor would recommend you.
9 out of 10.
Have a lucky strike to settle your nerves.
Usually had one on the show, too.
Yeah, he was always smoking in his intros.
See the smoke coming up.
He ended up selling the rights of the Twilight Zone to CBS, and I don't think he sold it for like a huge amount of money, but he sold it because the show would frequently go over the production costs, and he felt like his production company would never earn back the costs, so he sold it so they could earn it back. I don't know if later he would have regretted that because then he lost control of it. But I don't know, Mike, did you have anything else? And he was known for his twist endings. His first, when he was trying to get the Twilight Zone off the ground, he wrote a pilot that they ended up using for another show. It was about Pearl Harbor, where a person goes to a psychiatrist because they keep having reoccurring dreams about Pearl Harbor. And in the end, it turns out the doctor's having the dreams, not the patient. It's kind of like one of those twists. Yeah. It was a very typical twist ending that Serling became known for and the show became known for. And then it was so popular that the network said, okay, we'll give you your own show now. Now that we took your script and use it for something else, now you can make a show out of it. But he was very keen on retaining the creative control and making the show what it was because he was so frustrated previously with the interference from executives and sponsors and stuff like that.
A few little points about him that I personally found kind of interesting. He was the only one of the writers, apparently it was contractual, that he was the only one that could include the word God in his screenplays or his teleplays. Any of the other writers knew that if they were writing a story with any kind of faith involved or any kind of mention of the word God, they would know that would automatically be scribbled out unless he wrote it. So a lot of people say he had some kind of God complex, but I don't know. It doesn't really, and nothing else really suggests that.
That's interesting because I think that'll come up later in one of the stories we discuss.
And another interesting point was that I remember watching these episodes as a kid and thinking some of the episodes, they just looked a little off from the others. And he had experimented with, actually it was more of a studio thing. They experimented with taping the shows instead of filming them. And that was something that I was always...
What's the difference?
Well, tape is a non-film medium. It was more of a video medium. So you could see, it's like a soap opera.
The picture would be weird, different, right?
So it just very sharp, crystal clear quality. Okay. It's like kind of like what digital is now.
Okay.
And I always noticed that as a kid, and I didn't even realize that until we were researching this, that some of my favorite episodes were actually filmed on tape, and he never was happy with how it turned out. So they only experimented with it for a few episodes, and then they got rid of tape because it was cheaper than film. So the studios wanted to cut costs, and Serling apparently put the brakes on that, and they never did it again.
Do you know why? Like the Twilight Zones are like half-an-hour episodes, except for the fourth season. Yeah. Which is all like hour-long episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why.
There's something with that fourth season because you can't get it on Netflix, as we were talking about. And there's some kind, maybe you were a different contract or something. I wonder if it went to a different
network or something.
It must have because
they're different.
Netflix has all of the seasons except for one.
Except for fourth season.
The fourth, yeah. And I was like, why can't you watch this?
And in Amazon Prime, you can watch 1, 2, 3, and 5 on Prime, but you can't watch 4. But I think you can buy the episodes for 4.
Aren't there 6 seasons though? Maybe.
No,
maybe
there's 5.
Not. Okay.
There's just 5.
Yeah. So fourth is that.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to say about Serling?
Nope.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Then let's move on to the actual episodes. So we're going to I'll just take them in the order that I got them in my notes here, which is, I think, the order that they were released. So the first one we're going to cover, and this is a different order than we discussed them in the last episode, but it's fine. We'll cover Perchance to Dream. This episode came out November 27th, 1959. It was season 1, episode 9. I think it's pertinent to note that this was the first episode that wasn't written by Serling. And it was written, of course, by Charles Beaumont. Beaumont spoke really highly. It was directed by Robert Florey, and Beaumont was happy with Florey's version of it because Florey was really meticulous in finding symbols and stuff and putting them into the episode. Essentially, the story is pretty similar to the short story. They made some subtle changes, like they always do. Like they always like change the characters' names. I don't know why they do that, but they always seem to change the characters' names. The guy is awake for 87 hours instead of 72, like in the story. There's a Napoleon tapestry versus a boat picture. I think the story might have started at a different point. I think the short story might have started off earlier. And in this one ends differently. I can't remember. He jumps out the window,
yeah,
right?
I think in the book he kind of doesn't he trip and fall out of it, and then in the show he kind of dramatically runs. And crashes out of it on purpose. So a little bit different there.
Is there something different with the woman? They extend I think the story is pretty short, and they extend the scene. The secretary. There's more scenes with her and like the carnival. Her name is Maya, which is actually a Hindu word meaning supernatural power wielded by the gods and demons to produce illusions. That was according to IMDb. It starred Richard Conte, who was in Ocean's 11 and The Godfather. He played Don Brazzini. Let's see.
Found out that Robert Florey was originally contracted to...
That's the director?
To direct Frankenstein.
Oh, really?
The 1931 Frankenstein. But apparently his script wasn't quite up to par, and I guess they had done test screenings and the makeup effects weren't so good for Boris Karloff, and they ended up pretty much throwing everything out, and James Whale went on to direct it, but they did keep the ending windmill scene, so that's just a little tidbit for Robert Florey.
I saw that they used some interesting effects, like they made that edges of the screen fuzzy to show the dream sequences. That's
an old trick.
Did they make the woman like a gypsy in the show? And then she wasn't in the story?
Yeah, I think, she was like that.
Yeah, she was almost like hypnotizing him and stuff. There was like that kind of that kind of thing going on that I don't know that was going on in the story.
There's more detail between him and the girl in the show, I think, just to show more interaction between the two. I think she's a little bit more...
she's like enticing him,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, she's more of
just to kind of like fill out the story.
Yeah.
Andreas, anything stick out to you on this visual version of the story? Or did you feel like it was pretty much straight on what the short story was?
Well, yeah, other than jumping out the window, I noticed this is the first one that I watched, and I saw how it looked more dated, because I never thought of the story that I read being dated, because I guess it's my own mind putting forth the elements in my perception of the story. But yeah, I noticed things like... the volume would amp up a lot during like the scary parts. And you see like the makeup of the woman, like you can tell it's kind of old fashioned. I don't know.
That's probably exactly what I loved about it.
Well, it certainly adds color, or
and the Twilight Zone is all in black and white, which I've heard people like say like it gave it this like critics and stuff and like biographers or people that wrote books about the show saying it gave it this like noir feel.
Sure.
Right.
Did they go over the when he's looking at the paintings and you can change? Does that take place in the show? I don't remember. I feel like I saw the horses come down, but maybe that was in my imagination reading the book. I don't know if they did that in the show.
They changed it to Napoleon instead of a boat. It was a boat, I think, in the book. So I think he does.
In the book, it says a group of soldiers, Napoleonic soldiers,
in the book
on horses. Yeah.
Oh, so then
so they're at the edge of a cliff.
Okay, so then it's a boat. It's a boat in the TV show. It's not a Napoleon tapestry.
Okay.
So it's just some subtle changes, and then the more dramatic thing. And then there's some like line changes. I think the psychiatrist says like sometimes running away is the best answer versus like it's often the best answer. They make these kind of like little changes.
I found the main character pretty irritating.
The actor, the way it was portrayed?
In the show?
And I liked like Andreas said, I could visualize my own thing in the story, and he wasn't quite as irritating. I don't know. That's just me. He kind of seemed just neurotic,
like dramatic,
just neurotic in the story in the show version.
But that makes sense, right? Because he's got this heart condition where he's like, I can't sleep, and he's been up for 87 hours.
Right, but you don't. You kind of wonder if is this just something this guy is self-manifested, kind of like you and your asthma attacks. Just kind of completely coming from your mind.
My asthma is completely fake.
I'm a professional. This is what I do for a living. I can smell it.
Okay, I see.
I can smell a faker. Anyway.
Ryan.
All right.
Back to the story.
Anyone else have anything else to say about this one? But it's pretty close, except for like they made the woman more like enticing or whatever. That's about it.
They kept the same like last line where he's like, "At least he died peacefully."
Right.
But like ironic because it really wasn't peacefully, but they didn't.
Oh yeah.
They didn't really know what was going on in his head before.
I think she said a line to him, and there said, "You can do all the things you can't do while you're awake."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, trying to get him in the dream, whatever.
But when he walks in, when he checks in or whatever and sees her, does he not recognize her?
I don't think they show that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like that would set him off.
All right. We can move on to the next one. So for the next one, we'll talk about The Howling Man, which came out in 1960. That was in season 2, episode 5. This one, I think they don't give like the backstory like they do in the story. They kind of get right into it, right? I don't. Did the main character have pneumonia, or was he just seeking refuge from a storm?
He was sick.
I think he got sick.
But they didn't. I mean, in the story, he was like on death's door in the story.
Yeah.
And in the show version, I don't think they quite painted it that. I mean, it was a nasty storm, and he was on a walking. I think he said a walking trip. So, I mean, you could kind of imply that he was sick, but...
Yeah, he's on a walking trip. He was on a bicycle trip in the story. Okay, that's one of the difference. They refuse to take him in, and he collapses. They have to take him in. The prisoner does not start out speaking German. He claims he was only kissing a girl, and he also says the monks are not a religious order. And actually, in this one, it's interesting. They take out the religious aspects for the most part. They say it's like not a religious order of monks, and there's no crosses. Because they specifically were worried about people complaining if there was crosses on TV, like the Christians would get upset about it. So they had magical, what was it, like a staff of wonder?
Staff of truth or something like that?
Yeah.
Looking like
and did you notice
Moses?
In the end when the character, I forget his name, he has a little staff.
The tiny
like
one?
a little version, like the novelty version of the staff of truth. To like lock the devil in there.
Yeah, that was a little cheesy.
Yeah, that didn't help.
The ending is very different in this.
Yes.
Right? Because in the story, he leaves and there's that ambiguity. This is a very much more concrete ending. Let's get it right into that. This one, you actually see the prisoner, he turns into the devil physically. It is verified. He is the devil. He physically changes the devil and bursts away in a cloud of smoke. And then the character is immediately struck and realizes, oh my God, I let out the devil. But then the character becomes obsessed with finding the rest of his days to find the devil and recapture him out of his guilt. He's successful. That's how the story starts, is he's at home and he's got someone locked in a room in his home, I believe. And it's the devil, and he's got his mini staff of truth or whatever on the door. And he is telling his maid or something, okay, don't let this person out. It's the devil, and I'm going to go get Brother Jerome to go fix it. And then we go back to the backstory, find out what happened with the monastery. And then at the end of the episode, of course, we come back and he leaves the maid to watch the devil. And I think it leads you to think that she doesn't believe him. Like he didn't believe the brothers, and she's going to let the devil back out.
Whatever you do, don't press this red button.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. It was kind of cool because I believe the director, Douglas Haynes, I think it was his original idea to...
Douglas Hayes,
to just have a hoof seen in the window that the devil was escaping through, instead of having the whole transformation
of the face and the horns and all that.
And I think it was either Beaumont or Rod Serling that said, no, I want the full transformation. I want you to see the man turn into the devil. But I think it could have been done interesting either way if they had just done a little devil hoof.
More subtle and intriguing,
the
rather than throwing it in your face.
And I do like the way they did it, though. I mean, I think either way could have been cool.
It could have been cheesy the way they did it, but I don't think it was.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it now and it's a little hokey looking, but I still think it was effective.
But it's interesting because of all that ambiguity we talk about, Andres, and the last episode, that's gone.
Yeah.
Now you have verification. This is the devil.
Yeah, but one thing I noticed watching the episode and not reading the book was the last line. You can catch the devil, but you can't keep him for long. So maybe that's kind of like the spin of the episode. Mm-hmm. It's not the fact that whether it is a devil or not, or whether it's God or not. It's the fact that it always ends up escaping, like water through your fingers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the appearance of the monk. Well, maybe not a monk in the show, but whoever, the Jerome character kind of looks like a god figure or a Moses. I thought he looked like Moses. I'm like, is this supposed to be their...
That was John Carradine.
That was John Carradine.
The Carradine family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wondered if they meant to symbolize he was a god figure versus, so it's good versus evil, and he's trapping the evil in. But I don't know. Maybe he just coincidentally looked like Moses.
Random Moses shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag Moses.
Yeah, I mean, he has this big white beard and like white robes and stuff. So he's kind of
it's supposed to be not religious order. And Beaumont, I guess, was against that because I read this criticism book about his life and works. I'll put a link on it or maybe a picture of the cover on the website. But they said that Beaumont was religious and was a Christian existentialist. So he wanted to cross like in a story, but I guess they overruled it. And I wonder if it was Serling who overruled him or not.
Well, I suppose they could leave out like the symbols like crosses and stuff, but suggest maybe that.
Although Serling didn't like censorship.
Right.
So...
But it was his show.
Except for religious censorship, maybe.
His show. He could do what he wanted.
Yeah.
He was fine with that. And anything else you guys have about this one? I saw that Frederick von Liederber, who was in Slaughterhouse-Five, which we covered in a previous episode of the podcast, he was, I think, the other brother in this
I think the directing was a little overstated at times.
I know that they would make the camera skew and
off
stuff.
kilter, which is, that can be an effective technique, but I think they used it to maybe a little too much.
Yeah, and Brother Jerome's beard. I mean, it also hit me, all these props. Everything looked like not everything, but a lot of things hit me like, oh my God, big prop there. Like, I could not stop, like Austin Powers, like the guy can't stop looking at the guy's mole, mole. It's like prop. But maybe I just don't watch enough of this type of episodes.
Yet another thing that I probably liked about it.
Right, yeah. Again, it's color, and I say that tongue in cheek, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. We can move on to the next one then. The next one I got on here is The Jungle, which came out in 1961. That was season 3, episode 12. This one is, I think, fairly different than the story. Obviously, they probably for budget reasons. They don't set this like in Africa or like, with this huge like dystopian society. They just kind of have like a cityscape and you hear like jungle noises being played. It's also very different because in this one, the premise is a businessman returns to New York City from Africa because he was building a hydroelectric project. He's not like just putting a city in the middle of the jungle. And his wife was there with him and she brought these souvenirs back, which she claims they're like souvenirs and he claims they're stuff from a witch doctor. And it gets off weird right from the beginning because it's like before the first commercial segment, he opens the door to his apartment and there's like an animal carcass in the hallway. So he knows like things are afoot. Then they have this whole boardroom scene where he goes and meets with a bunch of suits and he's talking to them that like, we got a real problem here. We were talking about this earlier in the car right up here about how the suits are all like, these superstitious people, they're silly. And then the protagonist is like, no, like you have a rabbit's foot on your chain. That's a superstition. You're like the same as them.
Yeah.
Right?
When was the last time you walked under a ladder?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And they all get nervous about it, which I thought it was kind of artful because it was a way to basically
to say we're not so different.
Right. To dispel the other side from this image of being less than logical or completely ridiculous. Yeah. It's like, hey, look at this. You are ridiculous too.
Rejecting the sense of otherness that people that are different than us are lesser or whatever. And this is just more like, oh no, they're different, which is one of the morals of the story.
Right.
Right. Or like they were used to their flavor of being weird and superstitious and they could no longer see it because they just do it every day. Mm-hmm. That was very interesting.
They also added a whole bar scene where he goes to the bar and he's all upset because his wife had a gift of a lion's tooth. And then then he's going home and he has car problems, right? And he has to walk home.
Walks through the park and everything. And
hears his noises and then...
Yeah, that was creepy. Yeah, because he hears noises and then he runs into like a homeless person.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you hear these noises of this like jungle? And the guy's like, no. And then he like pays him money to walk him home.
Yeah. I thought this episode was fantastically done.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was the best from a filmmaking standpoint. I thought it was the most effective adaptation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's creepy when he's not in the jungle, but you're still hearing noises that are so completely like not fitting in with where he is, and that just kind of adds to it. Like, where are these coming from?
It's like, but it sounds a little bit like they got like one of those like Sounds of the Jungles like kids records, and there's someone just like sitting behind the cameraman like playing
props again,
monkey screeching in the trees.
This is what the monkey sounds like. This is what the lion sounds like.
I think,
and there's no shaman confrontation in this one.
This one is so departed from the book.
Yeah.
It took a completely different way, but it still is. It gets the exact same point across. So.
And the wife is not sick. She's not dying of like a disease.
Right.
But he still is freaking out. And he is freaking out. He's freaking out because of his wife being sick, but also because he doesn't understand what's going on. And in this one, he's freaking out because he doesn't understand what's going on.
And he's battling with his own conscience a little bit.
This one, he feels like the bad the bad magic followed him back home.
Yeah.
He believes in it.
Yes, and it's
why
the opposite.
That's why he'd be freaked out by the mementos or whatever she brought home, the souvenirs, thinking that shouldn't be in the house, or that he was probably afraid of what those could mean. But
it's different than like the book where he is putting a city somewhere, and then that's where everything bad happens.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it makes much difference which way it is, because I think the same points are still hit home.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I feel like in the book, sort of nature wins, whereas in the episode, it's more like black magic, it seems.
Yeah.
Right, because in the story...
It almost simplifies it in a way.
I think so. Like, the amulets get burnt in the fire, so he loses protection that way, and then he leaves the lion tooth behind, and then he gets eaten by a lion, right?
Yeah.
So it's more about black magic. It's more like... feels like more going after shock value rather than nature versus, humanity trying to manipulate nature.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless the black magic is somehow connected to nature, like they use if the shamans use it to like.
But it only affects him in the TV version versus the story where this whole city is going to be having problems, right? This whole city created in the jungle.
But either way, he was the mastermind behind these this development. Mm-hmm. So it's still the exact same point being hit home. Mm-hmm. No,
I feel like to me it rang a little more hollow in this one. Like it was not as solid of a story. I can see where it is more of like it's almost like what you're talking about. What you like, it was more like hitting like the thriller kind of fast paced elements, but it didn't have just like the depth. Like I don't know. It just seems to me like this whole city intruding on this land and then this whole city being in danger versus this guy screwing up. He created this electric dam, but now he's home and it's just like following him home and it's still killing him and his wife. The same ending that way, but there's a hint of more to come in the short story. Like in the TV show, is it kind of done? Like him and his wife are killed and then is that it? They don't really talk about what's going to happen with the dam, do they?
Mm-hmm. Or with the lion. I mean, it's a lion in a hotel room or
something. What's going to happen with the lion in a hotel room? I don't know.
Who put it there in the first place?
Right.
Yeah, it's a little, I don't know, it's a little more maybe contrived. I kind of agree with you. This one did not catch my imagination as much.
You both you're allowed to be wrong. It's okay. I thought the very final scene with the lion was very well done and disturbing and scary.
Because at that point you think like, oh, it's over.
That was effective.
They had a real lion,
even though
right?
you knew something was going to happen, but it was just very. I don't know. It was well done. I think it was well directed.
No, in the show is he in Africa there, or is he returning from Africa?
He's in New York City. So he's back.
He's in Africa. This is where they're still doing their work in Africa, but he's come back.
He's come back.
So he's out of the jungle, but the jungle kind of followed
him back. That's why it's like more like black magic versus the, like Andreas is saying, like the nature coming around. Mm-hmm. Even though they take out the shaman. I mean, I guess the wife got the souvenirs from a shaman, but you don't see the shaman. It's not really
mentioned yet. Okay.
There's no interaction like there is in the story. So
I think the point is just don't mess with our culture and our
that's the
culture
same.
And nature, because the lion being the nature and the dead animal, and then the culture is the black magic and
don't
the souvenirs.
Tread on me.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it takes both.
Mm-hmm. All right, we can move on to the next one. The next story is going to be In His Image. This one came out in January 3rd, 1963. It was a season 4 episode, the first episode of season 4. So we start off right out of the gate with a Beaumont episode. I think, did someone else co-write this with him? I'm not sure, but it was directed by Perry Lafferty. So this one, they added some trippy electrical noises while the old woman goes on a religious rant. They added some lighting and occasional semi-distorted phrases. So they kind of added more like effects and stuff. You know what? I felt like they made it more obvious that he was a robot like quicker in this than in the story.
Yeah.
You didn't have that ambiguity. It was like you knew, pretty quickly that what was going on.
It was more dramatic.
I think Andreas is going to hate this episode.
Did you? Did you hate this one?
It was okay. It wasn't one of my favorites, but...
But you liked the story.
Yeah. Yes, I did. But I wasn't truly captivated.
I didn't even really like this episode that much, which was weird because I like the story.
And I think they take out the part where he's going to kill his girlfriend, don't they?
No.
No,
he's behind the tree.
He's kind of like trying to get her to leave. So I think that was the implication was he was going to hurt her.
But he doesn't go back with her. Doesn't in the story he goes back with her. He overcomes his urge and they leave together. But isn't in the?
And she drives off.
Yeah, she
in the story
leaves.
she does
still. Yeah, I think she goes off on her own because he tells her to leave.
In the show or both?
Like both, isn't it?
Oh, is it both?
Unless I know in the show he
Okay,
does it because he gets
different.
hit by the car and then
right.
He's like, leave and I'll meet you at your apartment.
Yeah, and then someone gives him a ride to town, and he's not bleeding, and he notices he's got the circuits. He has another attack episode when he confronts his creator. He goes and confronts his creator, and then he kind of loses it. I can't remember if that happened in the story. Did he fight his creator in the story?
No, I was going to mention that too. He kind of just tells him, "You're going to make another me." And then they disappear. They go down into the laboratory, and then one of them comes out. So they don't show that, there's this fight. And that might have been just more dramatic on the show to show that.
Yeah. Even
though it was kind of confusing. If he wants him to kind of go out and replace him, why are they fighting about it? That I didn't really understand.
Okay. I saw, what else about that? There was a sample, I think, of this episode used by a rapper. The Seer, the Poet by Killa, the song The Seer, the Poet by Killa Priest, the rapper Killa Priest. Let's see. And also the Rod Serling monologue from this episode is used as the ending of the song Threatened by Michael Jackson. So, yeah, it was all right. But I think I like the story better on this one.
Next story.
At the end about the subway killer, because he had killed or pushed the woman in the beginning.
Oh, we didn't cover it.
We didn't talk about that.
We didn't cover
time.
that. That's a very good point. The story starts off with him killing someone, and then he goes to his fiance. That's a very significant thing that we missed because, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up because
I forgot about it.
He's going to live happily ever after, supposedly, because the robot tells him to take over his life, but he's got a murder under his name that the robot committed, and he doesn't know that.
And he could essentially, get caught, and then he won't have this
happily
ever after.
I had understood that that was kind of a residual memory from his creator.
No, I didn't think so. I thought that was that he actually did it. The robot starts the story
does it.
For no reason. Yeah, he pushes someone into a subway
because he's got the lack of inhibitions that his owner doesn't have.
So it starts with a murder because it happened. It was kind of out of the blue and confusing.
Yes, exactly.
So in my mind, I file it under something that may not have happened, like a dream type deal.
That's interesting. That's not the way I took it. I took it like that actually happens is you start off with this character, you don't know anything about him. He's standing at a subway. Oh, and there's a woman confronting him about religious stuff. Oh, yeah. And he's like, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. She won't leave him alone. And he just shoves her into the subway and she's killed and he runs away and survives. Then he goes and greets his fiance and he's like, oh, hey, we're all happy. And then he freaks out and realizes he's a robot. But then the robot's like, okay, you're going to go live a happy life with my fiance. And they don't get it. They don't show what happens next in the story or the show. But you as the reader or the audience know someone's going to have to pay for that murder. And the robot and him look exactly the same. Yeah. So he's going to have to answer for that crime. If was there witnesses? I can't remember. Well, I don't know if there was or not.
I don't really think so, but you never know.
I thought they hinted at that. I thought they hinted that they were looking for a man.
It's weird when he pushes her. She says goodbye, Walter, I was like, does she know who he?
No, he says that.
Oh, he says it.
Yeah, and he doesn't know why because Walter is his creator.
Yeah,
and that's before he realizes that he had a creator and that he's a robot. So that's in the beginning when you don't know what's going on. He's talking about Walter. He's having these thoughts and he kills someone. There's no explanation. And then later on, it kind of unravels. Oh, he's a freaking robot and Walter's his creator. It's a
robot.
I forgot. That was a very important part of the story. Starts off with a murder. Yeah. We totally glossed over that in the last episode.
Yeah.
It kind of changes things. But all right.
That was just showing how he did something that the creator would have wanted to do but never actually had it in him to do. But when he created this robot, the robot's able to act on his instincts.
He's uninhibited. He's uninhibited. Yeah,
or his urges to kill somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, that's very unsettling because then he goes and he's all nice with his fiance and you're like, wait, this guy's a psychopath. And then, the whole story is crazy because you think he's going to kill the girlfriend. Like, what's he going to do? Like, we just saw what he did. Mm-hmm. But then in the end, the robot is trying to become more human.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of an interesting element.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. We can move on to the next one?
Yeah.
The next one will cover The Passage on the Lady Anne. And that one was, of course, based on the Song for the Lady short story. That one came out on May 9th, 1963. That was season 4, also episode 17. So both of these season 4 episodes were hour-long episodes. This one is different as well because in this one, the couple, their marriage is troubled, right? They're not like newlyweds. So they're fighting, they're not getting along. The guy, I think he's just, all he cares about is his job. And the woman wants to make the marriage work. And I think she's a stewardess and she's like, we're not going to take a flight. We're going to go on a boat so they have to spend time together. He's going to a business trip in England. That's what it is. And she tags along so they can work on their marriage. He's all, standoffish and cold. And then the old people act weird to them, just like the book. But then they start acting nice. And then all of a sudden they reconnect and their marriage is fixed and everything's fine. Except, oh wait, here's a gun. And, Alfred the butler from Batman appears.
Oh, is he on that?
Yeah.
Oh,
cool. Is he the ship's captain or is he's one of the boat's captain?
Yeah. I think he was the captain.
Yeah. So he shows up and tells them, get off the boat, or one of them does. And then, but it's like, the ending is different because in the ending, the boat doesn't blow up. The boat just goes off to the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Right? So it's less dramatic. It has
smoke coming out from it, and then it says it goes under the waves or something.
Did it? I didn't think it did. I thought it was more ambiguous.
I thought it drifted away, but I was looking back at it. It says.
Well, you're looking at the book. This is the TV show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought we were talking about the book for a second.
The book. I thought in the book that it blew up. Mm. I thought there was a hint that there was an explosion.
Yeah. They detonated something and it blew up
beneath the waves.
Yeah.
But this one, it was kind of just it
kind of floats away,
floats off and disappears.
It's an interesting choice. I wonder why they chose to do that. It's like that's like less. It's less bothersome.
They didn't have the budget
it's
for
a bit
like
more
an explosion.
Twilight Zone-y, though.
Did you guys like that over the blowing up the boat?
I liked it. I
liked it better too.
Yeah,
really?
I liked it better. I didn't think they needed to have an explosion in the book. I thought that
you didn't want to see Grandma get blown up.
That was too literal, a little too literal.
Yeah,
for a book.
I really love this episode because
it sinks in the book, though.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, okay.
Why do you like this one? Did you like this one the most of all of them?
Yeah, I think so because number one. I had a hunger for the details of the ship. Like when I watched Titanic, I hated the movie, but I loved seeing the Titanic. Being given a tour of the Titanic, and I don't have those details in my mind, so I could not picture them reading the book. But it was lovely seeing them on the screen, and I also greatly enjoyed the British characters, Mr. Mackenzie and his wife, the way they talked. It was just. I thought it was lovely, and that was coupled with the topic of love, no? So it was really nice, and everybody. I mean, it's kind of a happy story, no?
Yeah, it is.
So maybe that's what I liked.
Yeah.
I saw a note on IMDb that because of the large number of well-known actors in the episode, the closing theme featured a credit roll of cast names instead of just still frames. So I guess they had a lot of well-known British actors.
Didn't know that
for this one.
Yeah, I'd say it was more of like
that's on IMDb.
More of a happy kind of a love story than a creepy, mysterious. I mean, it has elements of both, but if you had to pick one or the other, I'd say it's more of a love story.
It's a softer. It adds to the love dimension by making the ending softer by having the boat disappear in the mists of the Twilight Zone, as opposed to just
blowing it up.
Everyone's dead.
Detonating it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Twilight Zone did that sometimes. Every now and then they had a light episode, and some were really good.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some were just funny or to kind of lighten up.
Night of the Meek, the Santa Claus.
This was the last episode actually written by Beaumont. There are other episodes that came out later, according to the Twilight Zone Companion. This was on Wikipedia, but those were ghostwritten primarily by Jerry Soule and John Tomerlin. That's when people were helping him out because Beaumont was getting sick at this point and couldn't fulfill his obligations. But yeah. Anyone have anything else about this episode?
I liked it. I liked it too.
Mm-hmm. How did you guys feel like the longer episodes in general? Like, I guess you didn't like the last one as much, but did you? Because at one point, like, there's like a scene where the old people are just like throwing out their old love letters, and I was like, they're just trying to fill time.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I disagree. I disagree.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. Yeah,
Why?
that's actually. Wow, to me that was a powerful moment because
It doubles down on the theme, I guess.
well, yeah, but it just made me think. Okay, love letters before they were even married. You know, they've had those things for 52 years or something.
Yeah.
But once they die, the value of those letters greatly diminishes. Mm-hmm. No, it's like the value is in our minds. I don't know. It just.
But they don't bring those with them into the Twilight Zone. They just let those go into the sea.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that.
It's interesting.
Yeah, but it's just like the change in the value. I mean, those things I would never even conceive of throwing away love letters that I've had for 50 years with my spouse, but they did, and it's because maybe it loses value. It's kind of like a drastic change. If the people are gone and nobody knows what those letters are or who those people are or what the feelings were that were transcribed.
Well, they're making the choice to let them go, just like they're making the choice to be on the boat and let their own lives go, as opposed to waiting around to die.
Yeah, and in that context, the value of those letters sort of greatly diminishes because the people are going away.
Yeah,
those who know their meaning and what their value is.
Different kind of episode.
Time filler. No, I see. Yeah, there's both sides.
You know, they also had a scene where they show the passengers practicing a fire drill, and I was like, why did the passengers bother practicing that?
Yeah, that was dumb.
If they were going to all kill themselves, and they all knew they were going to kill themselves, but I guess they knew they were being watched by this couple, so I don't know, maybe they just had to like
they were going through the motions. Putting on a ruse.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all the notes I have on this episode. All right, we can move on to the last episode. So this episode was called The Number 12 Looks Just Like You, and it came out season 5, episode 17, which aired January 24th, 1964. So this one, there is some changes. They made some subtle changes, like they named the models off of famous models, like Marilyn Monroe and some other famous contemporary models at the time. And they had a model play the actress, and they had the actors play multiple roles to show how they were the same. They all looked the same.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who played it.
I think I might have it in the notes.
Mary in the book, Marilyn in the show, she was the regular girl, so she wasn't even the model type yet.
Susie Parker played Lana Kuberle, Eva and Doe.
Mother, yeah.
Grace, number 12. Grace, number 12. She was an American model and active actress from 1947 to the early 1960s. They got a real model to play, like the model-looking characters.
Now I want to point out that the director of this episode, Abner Bieberman,
is
from Milwaukee,
where we are.
Ooh.
There you go.
Oh no, we're not there.
Or no,
that's where you're. That's where you're from. That's where you live. Let's see. In some of the other differences on this, there's a character, Uncle Rick, who I don't think is in the story, right? It's just the mom, pretty much, and then her employer. There's no uncle that comes around. The mother is played very differently in this one, because in the story, the mother's very upset and very discombobulated because the daughter won't make the change. In this one, the mother is very like robotic,
cold,
and she's very calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she's just like, oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. It's almost more eerie.
Yeah.
Because she's not all agitated.
Lack of emotion.
It enhances the whole we're all the same thing.
They don't have
she's acting
their
robotic.
own personalities anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the book, she's very like, why are you doing this to me? And everyone's going to think you're a mutant, and I have a mutant for a daughter.
Yeah, and they don't mention mutants in the...
Right,
in
they
this,
don't.
Yeah. Right.
Or the fact that, does she have a job in the show? I don't think
so.
Yeah.
She's got a friend.
I don't think they added a friend.
She, the father didn't die in the quote-unquote Ganymede incident. He actually killed himself, she says, because they took away his identity and he had no more reason to live, which that was more dramatic to say that her father killed himself because of the way society is. In this one, they show her change, and at the end, she's like all happy. There's also a quote. She's talking to her friend, can't understand why she doesn't want to take the transformation. And her friend has this really eerie quote where she's like, this is the friend Valerie telling the protagonist. She's like, I feel good. I always feel good. Life is pretty. Life is fun. I am all and all is one. And it's like this rhyming kind of eerie kind of speech. It's like, join us kind of thing.
Not natural, yeah.
I saw in IMDb, they noted this was set in the dystopian future of the year 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
And just an ironic Twilight Zone Twilight Zone experience for me. I was at the gym working out the other day, listening to Spotify, and a band came on. This metal band came on called The Number 12 Looks Like You. They were named after this episode. I was like, why does this seem familiar? But I think this was a very famous episode, and a lot of people know this one because it just was so creepy, and it had this famous model in it. So it was very well known, and I think just this story just really speaks to people about losing your individuality and stuff like that. So I don't know. Does anyone else have anything else to say about this one?
Nothing else really. I agree.
Just about superficiality of culture and just wanting a certain look, or people are always aiming for looking a certain way. And
the number thing, that's very ingrained in society. I mean, that's what that Hitler did. You know, they were numbering Jewish people. I mean, that's like...
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has fears of just being reduced to a number. Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate taking away of people's individuality, you know?
And there's an element of the culture of the time when the psychiatrist is pretty straightforward allusion to Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
And he's all enlightened, you know, like
they bring her to a psychiatrist, like, we'll straighten you out, you know. Mm-hmm. Isn't there like 3 different psychiatrists, all played by the same actor with different...
Yeah.
He just... No, 3 different characters.
Yes. They're all...
They're all...
Yeah. Same actor plays all 3.
Yeah.
And one of them, he has like Sigmund Freud or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. They're all German psychiatrists.
But, and he's like casted as a authority.
Yeah.
An image of wisdom, which is super 20th century, you know?
Yeah.
And now it's kind of dated, culturally.
Yeah. But the fear of becoming a number, that's still relevant, you know? But, I don't know. So I think that's all we got to say about these episodes. That's the last one. What do you guys, let's just go around if anyone has any final thoughts. I mean, the Twilight Zone obviously is a very classic, well-known piece of history, television history. I think it generally got modest ratings. Like we said, it was canceled 3 times, but it's like Star Trek. It endures.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, we're discussing it now. And
it just became a big part of pop culture.
Yeah.
References everywhere.
And the theme song and stuff.
Yeah.
People bring...
Yeah. And there are so many great episodes.
Yeah. Well, so what would you give star rating wise? And the one common thing with these episodes is these were all Beaumont episodes. We'll go to you, Mike. Out of like 1 out of 5. I mean, you're a huge Twilight Zone fan. So how would you feel like this collection in general?
None of these were amongst my favorite.
Howling Man?
I like Howling Man. I liked it, but none of them really ranked in my like top 5 Twilight Zone episodes, but they're still Twilight Zone episodes, so I still like them. Mm-hmm. So I would say I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. Andres, what about you?
Well, I think if I were to unglue the cultural icon part of it versus the straight story, say if I didn't know anything about the Twilight Zone, I think I enjoy seeing this icon. It's a cultural icon, and the song and the guy, the narrator in
Rod Serling, yeah.
Yes. But as far as the stories, they were interesting, but I would give it a 3.
Okay. Kaelin, what about you?
Just reading the books and then seeing the episodes. And I had seen the episodes before, most of them, except for the season 4. I don't know. I thought they were pretty good, comparisons to the book. And I enjoyed them. Again, they don't stand out as some of my favorites. I think The Howling Man was probably, if I had to pick, one of my more favorite ones. Overall, I'd say maybe 3.5 to 4.
Okay. It's interesting. I just had a thought and I just lost it.
What would you give it, Ryan?
I guess I'd give it a 4. You guys are kind of talking me down. But I'm like, are these better than the stories? I'm not sure that they're better than the stories. So I don't know if I really want to rank them. So I'll rank them in equal. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. It's like, this is interesting. On this show, we always cover books or stories turned into movies or TV shows. In this scenario, which it doesn't come up a lot, the writer worked on the show. It wasn't like he just wrote it and then went away. And then someone else just completely took it over. Beaumont was a writer on the Twilight Zone, so he was involved with these. So there is compromises made with these stories, but he was there for all these compromises, able to put his input in pretty significantly. So it's interesting to see this perspective. You know, I think Mike, you've told me TV is more of a writer's medium.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's reflected here, but
I had rated the book a little bit higher than the shows, but I think just with books and as a reader, I mean, I enjoyed the show very much too, but just the details, the amount of details that you can get in a book that you can't get just by viewing something makes it a little bit more...
People generally prefer the books to visual mediums when they're taken from one another.
Generally, yeah.
I've noticed a couple times in the show that movies or visual mediums will supersede a written work when the director takes more risks, which is riskier because he can risk isolating the original audience.
Risk is riskier.
The risk is riskier.
The risk is riskier.
But these are kind of like more spot on, but I don't know, they're all successful in my book, so I'll rate it the same.
I thought they're good representations of the stories.
Yeah, and they have enough changes to make it work, like Mike, you said in The Jungle. You know, you thought those changes all made sense and made it better for you. I
thought so.
I mean, we had some disagreements about that, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Everyone can go around and we'll plug your meetings. Mike, you're an indie filmmaker and you're on YouTube. People can look for you there and find your films there.
Yep. Search for my name, Mike O'Reilly. Also, I have a Instagram account, and that I don't even know what my name is on that. So, Mike, I'm gonna guess Mike O'Reilly.
You're gonna guess your name is Mike O'Reilly. Okay. Well, maybe we'll
How's that for a plug?
We'll link to that on the show notes or something. All right, Andreas, you're on Instagram. I'm going to spell your name again if people want to look you up and see your artwork. What is there a particular, like, your artwork, if you had to describe it, like, what do you generally do? You do oils, and is there any subject matters you particularly do? I mean, you're not doing still lifes or...
No,
you're not doing like fruit in a basket. That's not
no, I'm the anti-fruit in a basket guy.
Okay.
I try to do expressionism, basically conveying emotions that hit you right away, or concepts. And it's under my name and my Instagram account, Andrei Sercovich, last name Sercovich.
Okay, cool. Yep. Cool. And Kaelin, you're on Goodreads, we said, and you have a YouTube book channel. I don't know if you characterize what typically genres of books you're more into. I think maybe you said it before, but you say it again. Like, what do you like?
Very active on Goodreads, so everything that I'm currently reading or have read is in there. I try to review. I don't review every book that I read, but if it hits me or I'm in the mood, I'll review. But it's a mix of stuff. I like psychological thrillers. I'll read regular fiction, sometimes horror, true crime, finance books. It's just kind of a spread. Graphic novels a lot.
Did you read Saga?
I have not.
You should check that one out. I read the first one. I liked it.
I liked Lock and Key.
That's Joe Hill.
Yes, by Joe Hill. Joe Hill. I just recently got into that. That was awesome.
Oh, was it? Okay, we covered him on the podcast. We did Horns.
Nosferatu's good.
Okay, that's another one by him.
And Stephen King's son.
Yeah, Stephen King's son.
Yeah, and he's very good. I mean, apple doesn't fall far from the tree with that.
He's definitely made a lot of success. I mean, and he, on his own name, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, just to put it into a graphic novel too, I mean, he collaborated with an artist, but with the writing and stuff, is just the concept and the way that he executes it, and it
I gotta check that
progresses. You'd like it, I think, Ryan.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
I didn't think it would be my thing because I'm not drawn usually to the fantasy and everything, but I think I'm slowly getting into it. I mean, and of course,
come over to the dark side with us.
Yes, and the Beaumont and Twilight Zone definitely has those elements anyway. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I on a BookTube channel that I did for a while. I haven't done it too much recently, but it's under Kaelin O'Reilly.
All right.
And then so hopefully we can link this.
Yeah, we'll link it over.
Podcast over to it too. So
yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
And then the podcast website is www.nodeodorant.com. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. You can find the show on YouTube. It's in like pretty much almost every place you can find podcasts. You can find our podcast. So check us out. And with that, we'll all say goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, or to read our show notes and find us on social media, visit nodeodorant.com. For more information on Ryan Sean O'Reilly and his various works of fiction, visit ryanseanoreilly.com. The theme music for this podcast was written by John Doyle from the band I Decline. You can visit him at i-decline.com. Voiceover for this podcast was provided by me, Margaret O'Reilly. Well, that concludes our episode. We hope you've learned a lot. Again, thanks for listening to our show. And always, always remember, there is no deodorant in outer space.
Okay, and Andreas, let's hear something.
Mike, why are you drinking your beer from a glass?
Excellent.
Felt like drinking.
And Kaelin, let's hear you, Kaelin.
Why are you tripping on me?
I'm here.
Just watch it if you move, because your mic's a little different. You can pull that a little closer.
I'm claustrophobic, though.
It's just the microphone.
Okay.
All right, let me get my notes queued up here.
Closer.
Make sure I read the right ones again.
Mike.
That's the wrong episode. This is a total farce.
Huh. I can't.
You can't hear or what?
Well, I'm not loud. Like, I never really can hear it.
Turn up. You turned it down.
I turned it up all the way.
Okay, I can turn everyone up. How's everyone?
I'm still good.
Is that too loud?
No.
How about now, Mike? Is it louder now?
I can't hear a thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Still is very loud. Very loud.
When you adjust it, does it go down?
No, I don't think these are working.
How's this now? Now how's it? How's it now?
Can you hear me, Mike?
There's nothing.
It must be those.
Wait. Okay. Well, I mean, I hear it now.
And they were
Now you hear it?
It's incredibly loud. It's like blasting.
Can
Right
you
now?
hear? Can you hear us? Like, okay.
No, you guys are all right.
Thank you.
Well, I don't want to
We're
turn your
okay.
gain down on the recording.
Yeah,
Try
this is going to
different-
get really old really fast.
It's always good to have backup stuff.
Testes.
How's that sound? Does that sound better?
Yeah, that's better.
Can you
Yeah.
hear
Better.
these testes?
All right, that's all being recorded.
Awesome.
All right, whatever. I'll deal with it. We
Okay,
can go.
it's good enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you doing all right over there? Okay.